Reisa.
Hello, everybody. And hi, Maggie. How are you tonight?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hey, everybody. This is Maggie Harding. Maggie is a jewelry designer and has some of her work displaying in Saratoga Springs, New York, at Silverado Boutique. And I am happy to be joined this evening by Maggie to talk about how she got started and what it's like to be a jewelry designer. Because, you know, we all see jewelry in stores, but do we really know how it's made? So here we are. Nice to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I got started actually in college. So I went to Skidmore, and I just kind of randomly took a jewelry making class. It was kind of the only thing that would fit into my schedule when I was studying abroad in Italy. So it was really kind of a chance thing, but I immediately fell in love with it.
So wait a minute, before we go into the jewelry, so you studied in Italy for a while?
Yeah, it was a summer course. So 5 weeks, 2 classes.
Oh, wow. How'd you like that?
Oh, it was awesome. I took a textile as well.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Okay, so all right, so before college, did you do other art as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell me about, like, you know, where did your art come from?
Well, I was always really into kind of hyper realistic pencil drawings throughout high school, and kind of like the classical drawing, with just light and dark, not really using color even.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just classically trained through my high school courses and college at first, and I thought maybe I would be just a illustrator or some sort of two-dimensional artist.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I fell in love with the three-dimensional metalwork, especially because it's just kind of fun. Like, I almost feel like a magician when I'm doing it. So I fell in love pretty quickly.
Oh, that's amazing. So why do you feel like a magician? Because that's really interesting.
It's just like, it's the fact that you can make metal change from liquid to solid, and then just the whole temperature thing. It's very, it feels very scientific, but it's also, you know, you're creating something out of just flat sheet and wire, and I feel like melting metal is kind of like just making something into something completely different. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, it sort of reminds me of alchemy, right?
yeah,
Right. Okay.
like some sort of wizardry.
Yes. Okay. So you're a wizard. Like, wizard is good. So is there a particular um, type of thing that you're inspired by when you're coming up with designs?
Yeah, well, as you know, I work with stone a lot now, and everything that I do is pretty much inspired by nature. And a lot of times that comes from the stone itself that I'm working on. And if I'm doing just a metal thing, oftentimes it has like a natural landscape in it as well. But so this is the back plate of a stone piece that I've been working on. And so I sawed this tree into it. And to me, the stone looked almost like rooted. So a lot of my pieces feature trees.
Yeah, and I've noticed on your pieces, because I've seen your work at Silverado, and many times you do a three-dimensional thing where you have one thing, the stone on the front, and then you turn it over and there's something else on the back, which is pretty unusual because most necklaces, etc., you kind of have the necklace and that's it, right? I'm wearing a necklace and then the back is whatever is plain. But many times yours has something on the back, another different picture. So tell me about that. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, it kind of happened by accident because I wear a lot of long necklaces myself, and this is one of my pieces. But I did notice that they always flip over, especially when they're hanging mid-body like this.
Mm-hmm.
So when it flips over, it just looks like nothing, like you're just wearing a metal teardrop or whatever the shape of the stone is.
Yes.
So just in the first piece I made, I wanted to put something back there, and it was actually through some research of historical pieces of jewelry, like back in hundreds of years ago when they would make jewelry. A lot of times the jeweler would put effort into the backside of a piece, something just for the wearer. So I just, even like Antiques Roadshow and things like that, I see they always say it's just for the wearer. And that's something that I hold dear. I often put words on my back, kind of like a mantra type thing as well. Just something inspirational, like
Yeah.
climb. I write
Yeah.
a lot.
I think it's beautiful. I just really love it because it's like, it's almost like a secret between you and that piece of jewelry. It's almost a little personal touch. Like there's something there that's just that only you know about and nobody else does, because they're looking at the front, but you know there's more, right? Unless it turns over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so you took that jewelry making course, and like it was just a spark in that moment, or what happened, and how did you go from textiles to that? Because I know you do other things have done things with textiles too. So tell me about that.
Skidmore has the breadth requirements. They make you take classes in fields that you normally wouldn't necessarily choose for yourself. So one of them, for my non-Western class, I ended up having to take a textile course in which I learned about batik. So that was like just kind of this random class that fit my schedule just perfectly. So I kind of just decided to take that, but ended up being my favorite class that semester. And then so when batik was offered when I was studying abroad, I was like, oh, I have to take that. And it's just so funny how things work out sometimes. But immediately when I started doing jewelry, I knew that I loved it, but I didn't think I could make it into a career until after I worked at Silverado for a few years. And my bosses have been very supportive in kind of letting me do my thing.
Yeah.
And encouraging me.
Yeah, I've been amazed because when your jewelry came out and when they started showcasing your jewelry, it's really so what's the word? It's actually pretty mature, or like developed, okay, for your beginning as far as an artist putting her work out onto the market. You know what I mean? It really has a feeling and its own sort of personality.
Well, thank you so much.
You're
That
welcome.
means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. So, and how did that feel? I mean, you have an idea and ideas, and then you come out, and next thing you know, you're being showcased, and you've been in the window, right, in the front window of Silverado, and that's a pretty prominent store on Broadway in Saratoga.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing, and I really couldn't have anticipated this. I mean, I knew when I went in there and asked for that job that there was like I had a really good feeling about it, but I don't think I could have predicted that in 5 years I'd be here.
Right.
So, I mean, it's been great. It's hard to put into words, like finally being able to just to make art in a way that's going to help me get to a higher level professionally as well, because it always almost felt like it would be very difficult to be a professional artist. And so
It is very difficult to be a professional artist. I'm speaking from experience. I come out of music and performing arts, and it is very hard, especially to do something that is original, right? It's not just like you're getting a job at a larger jewelry maker, right?
Yes.
At a manufacturing plant or whatever like that, right? You're actually stepping out and able to do your own vision, right? And have people buy it. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think I mean, I couldn't be happier about that. I feel very lucky.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
fun.
amazing. It's amazing. So tell me a little bit about casting. So I
Yeah.
know that you're getting into natural stuff with casting. So tell me, like, how do you cast? Like, how is that? Because basically we go and we look at jewelry, and for the most part, people really, I think, don't know what goes into a piece of jewelry being made, right?
Yeah, so casting is something that I just recently got back into. I invested in equipment just probably a few months before COVID. And so basically you start with, I don't think I have any right here, but you start with, oh wait, here's some. So you start with, this is a wax that is a hard wax that I carved into a ring shape, which this is not the finished product, but it's just a base for me to carve further into to create a design. So you can either hand carve something like this, and then what you're gonna do is take one of these canisters. It's basically just like a tin can without a top or a bottom. And then this is a rubber mold here. So you put the piece of wax into the center, and then you fuse this or whatever you're working on. You can also dip natural fibers and twigs and branches and flowers into wax and attach it as well to this thing. So you're going to make a little tree. And they literally call it a tree. And then when you put this on here, you're creating a seal around it. So then you'll pour plaster into it. And that will kind of harden over time. You put it in a kiln for 12 hours and you have to bring it up every 2 hours, very slowly, incrementally, so that it doesn't create any fractures in the plaster. You're also, while you're doing that, melting out the wax. Because if you take this off, once the plaster is hardened, then you have this little funnel that the wax melts out of. And then what I do is I'll show you this thing. It's kind of fun. It's my spin caster. So
cool.
So this is my kiln where I melt out the wax. And this is my spin caster. So I'll show you how it works. And what you do is once you have this plaster mold all hardened, you put it, you melt the metal in here, which is called a crucible. And so I have my torch here and I'll spend a couple minutes melting the metal in there.
Yep.
And of course I'm wearing gloves and protective gear at this time.
Of course.
And then you put this in here. And then this thing kind of slots in there.
Right.
And then when everything's all melted and hot, you open this and let it fly. So that it's a centrifugal caster that's spinning all of the molten metal right into that slot you've created with the
that's amazing
cavity. So,
and then it like cools and hardens.
Yeah, and as you can see, it's still spinning. So it spins for about 4 or 5 minutes sometimes.
Wow, that is so cool. And so then when it stops spinning, it's ready?
You have to wait for it to cool for a few minutes, and then when you plunge it into a bucket of water, the plaster kind of naturally breaks apart at that point, and you're able to clean it up. So if I go back to my desk here, I'll show you. This is something that I cast recently.
Oh, that's beautiful. So that looks like a natural piece, like a branch.
And it was bigger than this. I've been cutting pieces off to use. But yeah, this is a little twigs from a floral bouquet that I had. It was actually, part of it is from my best friend's wedding. From a couple
that's
of us
sweet.
dried the flowers and cast them.
That's really neat. Yeah, that's really cool. What are you going to do with that?
Well, I'm thinking on this fringe that I usually put on the bottom of all my pieces to kind of put like a little organic element just on the bottom part, so it kind of peeks below the stone from the front. So
that'd be
a little
beautiful.
bit of the organic from the front, but we'll see how it goes. I haven't tried it yet. But
that sounds great. So lots of tools around you. You know, what do you sort of use a lot?
This is my saw. I really like it. It's pretty. It's functional.
Right.
And
so that cuts metal?
Yep. So whenever I do one of these cutouts, what I do is I drill a little hole, thread the saw through it, and then I saw all the fine detail with this here.
Oh, wow.
It's
That is
tiny.
pretty.
The saw blade's actually in it. It's like, it's just a little, like a couple hairs, you know, it's small.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so
Yeah.
they do break a lot sometimes if you're doing really fine detail work. So
Mm-hmm.
always
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of saw blades on hand.
Yep.
And then I've got a few hammers. This one you can use to like give either a hammered finish, or like if like a lot of times for earrings, I will hammer out fringe. So this one's great for that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've
then,
seen your hammered fringe. They're beautiful.
thank you.
Yes.
And then when you're having when you're working on a piece, sometimes it becomes a little warped from either the heat or from whatever you're doing to it with the other hammer. So this one will, it's made of rawhide, and it'll flatten out a sheet when it's still a flat sheet. So if you need to put a bezel down on it, it needs to be perfectly flat. So that's what I use this one for.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular, do you have a particular type of jewelry that you like to make the most? Like, whether it's bracelets, rings, necklaces, earrings, you have a favorite?
I would definitely say large pendants and large earrings. That's pretty much my favorite, but I also make small things, but I think that I can put a bigger picture on the back of it with my saw
Mm-hmm.
if it's bigger. So it kind of gives me a
Yep.
bigger canvas. So
Yes, yes, that's cool. And so, tell me about like, do you have something you're working on sort of towards the future? Like what are you looking towards?
well, just try to make a bunch of pieces for the holiday season, I
Mm,
guess. And I do want to get more into the casting. It does take a very full day to do the casting. So I have to be here for at least 14 or 15 hours in a row
wow.
to do it, um, which is a little bit difficult when you work full time. So
Right.
I'd like to dedicate maybe at least one day off a month to really like be here and do the full thing. Because
Sure.
if I make enough pieces in a day, that could really last me the whole month. Um,
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, that's very cool. And so how do you know, when you look at a stone, does it sort of speak to you and tell you sort of what you're going to do with it? Or like how,
Definitely.
yes.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So like this one, I just got these beautiful earring slabs. They're bright blue with a green kind of fringe on the edge. And to me, these just scream ocean. So I'm going to have to do something with either seaweed or a shell motif on the back. Because, I mean,
They're very oceany, yes.
yeah, you kind of
Is that
have
a
to.
turquoise or is that,
It's a very bright Peruvian opal. And the
cool.
brightest one I've ever seen, but I'm sure they come like this sometimes, but I've only seen the pale ones, so I thought they were really cool.
Yeah, those are beautiful. And so I do have a question about, do you know, in all of this, have you learned about stones as well?
Yes, definitely. But I think really I was getting a pretty thorough education at Silverado,
Mm-hmm.
just on the stones. I knew my favorite stones. I knew a little bit about them, but just studying the other artists, even for the few years before I even bought my torch while I worked there, I learned a lot about what I wanted to make. And I was always kind of planning a little bit like what I would do if I could get stones like that. And, you know, finally it kind of happened.
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. Yeah, that's pretty super. So the the stones, when you go looking at stones, you sort of know like, I want that one, that one. They speak to you in terms of what they're going to be, or you
I
know.
don't necessarily always know what they're going to be, but I
Hmm.
know that I have to have it right away. Usually.
Well, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Only for me, it's like already done jewelry. You know, I can't even, hard for me when I even go into Silverado without wanting like a million things in there,
I
right?
totally understand. Imagine me, I work there 5 days a week. It's hard for me as well.
Yeah, I would have a really hard time. If I worked there, I would totally be like, it would be bad. It would be
Yeah.
very bad. Yeah. So what other things do you, what other things you do? Tell me about your life. Like tell me about your inspiration.
Well, with the whole nature thing, a lot of mine have a little nature on them. And I really like hiking, snowboarding, kayaking, anything to really to get outside. So I like, and I think that I've been traveling more since I started doing the jewelry because I really like taking the nature photography of my pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So each one kind of gets me out there and where should I bring this to photograph? You know, where have I not been yet? So it's getting me to try new things, which is pretty fun. That was
Yes,
an unintended side effect. I had no idea that would happen, but
absolutely. So anything like that you're working on right now, aside from that necklace that you want to talk about?
um, well, there's this one here. I guess this could show like the first step because I just shaped this piece of silver to
Mm-hmm.
match this stone. Um, it's it's a very weird stone with little ammonites fossils in it.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
So with this one, I have yet to saw the back, but I think that I probably have to do a shell because it's got shells on the front too.
I was going to say it
Um,
might be part of your sea theme,
yeah.
right?
Yes, exactly. So this one's a little different from what I normally do because this one's gonna have prongs. Um,
Mm.
so now that I have it shaped flush to the edge there,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm gonna do is solder prongs to the side of this metal,
Mm-hmm.
and see where those go. I don't know exactly. I usually do, if I do a prong, it's usually not like fully symmetrical. It's usually a little bit wonky. So just
Like
like a little
natural
organic.
things.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm looking forward to your collection of sea things because I love ocean stuff. So I'm really pretty excited to see that. Anything else you want to tell us about your work?
I think we pretty much covered it, Risa. I don't know. It's been fun to, talk about. So
I love that. Yeah, I really love your work. I'm so always when I see it, I'm always amazed. And now I think that I know you do things on the back. I'm always looking for that when I look at your pieces, right? Because I know that's sort of that's like your brand. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you've got something to say. Yeah.
Well, one thing, I had a customer that bought a few of my pendants, and she bought one while we were closed, sight unseen, and whoever was selling it to her didn't show her the back. So I asked her if she knew that there was, before she got it, I asked her if she knew there was something on the back, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to be surprised. Don't tell me what it is." So um,
Yeah.
that was a
Yep.
little bit funny, but I mean, it was still like nature, so obviously she knew she was going to like it because she likes nature. But
Exactly. Yes, I always have, and it's always that thought of what's it going to be on the back? What's she going to
yeah,
say to me with this piece? So I think that
fun.
that's really cool. So I'd love to thank you so much for joining me this evening and talking about what you do, because I think a lot of people love jewelry, and I know I love jewelry, but we don't always know, like, where does it come from and how does somebody think about it and how do they put this together and how does somebody make this stuff? So thanks
Yeah,
so much
thank you
for,
so much.
you're welcome.
You
And I
can
love
check
your
out.
work, and
You
I'm looking forward to your new stuff.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you can check out my Instagram. It's Maggie Harding Designs, and my pieces are for sale at Silverado, which Instagram is Silverado Saratoga, and that's a really easy way to get in touch with them. So
Sounds great. So it's Maggie Harding, everybody. She's got absolutely beautiful jewelry at Silverado, and I'm really happy that she could join us tonight.
thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
evening. Thank you so
Have a good
much.
one.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.